All right. I wanted to make a tier list video about the new patch since it's live, and they reworked Skull Merchant and gave Trapper a little bit of a buff. So I figured I'd come on here and just discuss what I think the personal opinion of mine, the tier list is. This is not, set in stone. It's more of a subjective thing. I understand some people aren't going to agree with this, but that's okay. It's just like my personal rankings on how we should go about this. But we're going to start with Trapper. And I think Trapper with his rework, it spawns his traps on objectives now, so you don't have to go super far out of your way to grab the traps. You get the little haste buff after you place your traps. I would put him probably in B tier, like low B. He's definitely not like super impressive, or he's not going to carry a match for you, anything like that. Like, you still have to be good with Trapper to perform. However, he does get a little bit of a boost. I wouldn't say he's among the worst killers in the game anymore, but he's definitely gotten some love with this past patch. Wraith, where do I want to put Wraith? Wraith is really weird because ever since he lost that little burst of speed after uncloaking, or like it got nerfed a little bit, he's not as reliable as getting hits while uncloaked. And I've seen a lot of players who play Wraith now, they go for the camp, or they'll proxy camp, things like that. I don't think Wraith is as bad as Trapper, but I would definitely put him in the B tier as well. Um, Hillbilly, Hillbilly for sure. Um, I think he's gonna go in B, but he's like gonna be in between Trapper and Wraith. Now that's not saying I've seen some really good Hillbilly players, but they're so far and few between. You already don't see Hillbilly, but it's also really rare that you will find a good one, especially after his engravings were nerfed really bad, which was unnecessary in my opinion. I think they should just revert that. Hillbilly can be good. Most people aren't, so we'll leave him right here. Um, Nurse, S tier. There's nothing they can really do about Nurse that's gonna really balance her. You know what I mean? She's really hard to balance because her ability itself is just so oppressive. That's about all I really have to say about her. No one's gonna argue that she isn't S tier. Michael Myers, I'd say C tier. I know it's funny to play him as a meme with scratch mirrors, or if you're running a Tombstone, but I don't think he is really that good of a killer. I think he gets bullied in a lot of matches, and the only thing he has going for him is the surprise factor. And if you're going against a Swift, there's just no point. He gets absolutely bullied and dogged on. I think he needs a rework, which I think they said is something they're looking into along with Freddy. But he does need some help because right now he's just not really in that good of a place. Hag, I would probably put A tier. The only reason I put Hag in A tier is because her traps do have good utility. It's just the fact of setting them up. If you don't have corrupt intervention, it is really hard to get her trap set up in the early game. However, if you can snowball with Hag, she's really easy. She's got anti-loop in her kit. Her add-ons make it to where you can teleport at any range, or like extend the range itself if you don't want to run the iridescent add-on. I do think she's just a solid pick for a killer. I wish more people played her. She's really fun to play against as well. Doctor, I would put Doctor in A tier as well. I don't think he's better than Hag, but I think that Doctor is really strong if you can get somebody on a strong loop. Just the simple fact that he can shut people down from even using windows and pallets and vault points is just really good. And I don't see a lot of people talk about that enough. I know everybody's like, oh, impossible skill check Doctor, but honestly, you could do play with your food, and you can shut down anything that the survivors want. You can just mess with them. He's really good. Don't think he's better than Hag. Huntress, I would put at the top of A tier. The only thing that prevents Huntress from getting S tier for me is her movement speed, which I understand. If she moved faster, she would be really broken, but I feel like that's what balances her out. She shuts down loops really easy. Most of the time, pallets aren't safe when she's looping you. She just has a lot of utility. I think she's a good starter character if you're trying to pick up the game and learn really quick. I just think she's a safe pick overall, but I do think she's going to be the top of A tier. I don't know if anybody's going to be taking her spot, but we'll see. Bubba, I'd put Bubba in C tier for this patch specifically. Just like, yes, he can still camp and insta down people with chainsaws, but the thing is, like, even if they're able to like burst out a couple seconds, like he has to chase them down anyways. And if you're playing against a coordinated Swift, they're gonna find a way to make you waste your power, bump into something, or they could even stun you with head on if they really want to mess with you. And I just feel like Bubba's not as strong as he was after this specific patch, especially because they reworked his chainsaw a little bit with the delay you can hit people. Um, Freddy, Freddy's probably, in my opinion, one of the worst killers in the game right now. Just his power doesn't really do enough. The one thing you want to do with Freddy that is useful is the teleport, and it doesn't come up frequently enough to really justify anything. Not to mention, they can see you coming a mile away. Like, no survivor is just going to linger around while you teleport to the generator. The snares aren't that good. The fake pallets, I mean, those are okay. They can be good. But I do think he deserves D tier until he gets reworked or changed or something, because he's just really bad right now. I don't even think anybody's currently playing him. Pig, Pig's a rough one. I would put Pig above Freddy, but I would still keep Pig in the D tier, because Pig is struggling right now. The thing is with Pig is that her power itself is really counterable, especially if survivors aren't easily mind game, and in the higher tiers they usually aren't. And her traps are just way too easy to get off. Like, if it's a well coordinated team, those traps aren't going to be active anyways. Like, as soon as you put them on them, they're going to find a way to get rid of them, unless you save them all for last gen. And even then, it's really hard to stop survivors from getting the traps off their head if multiple survivors have traps on their head. Clown, um, I would say Clown is in C tier, but I would say he's above Michael Myers. And the only reason I say that is because he got a huge buff with the Xenomorph getting Rapid Brutality. Rapid Brutality with Save the Best for Last on Clown is actually so disgusting. I have no clue how it's not nerfed already. However, unless they decide they don't want to nerf it, or if things stay the same, I feel comfortable with keeping Clown there. Clown has the potential to be a lot stronger if a really good player knows how to play them. But I'm just talking about, like, from an average standpoint, I would keep him exactly right there at the top of the C tier. Spirit is going to get an S tier. Even after the nerfs and everything to her that they keep trying to pump out, she's still good. I mean, just her shift itself, like her ability, is just so good, especially against uncoordinated teams. She just has that surprise factor. She has movement speed. She has tracking on some of her add-ons. Like, there's just a lot of things going for her and not a lot of things going against her. So I feel comfortable keeping her in S tier. I don't think she's as strong as Nurse, but I think that she's comfortably up there. Legion, I'm going to put Legion in B tier. I'm going to say that Legion is better than Trapper for sure. But the thing is about Legion is that if you're playing against a team that knows how to play against Legion, they're just going to spread out the entire time. I mean, yeah, you can still get value out of your ability, but you're only going to be able to hit like one person at a time. You're never going to hit two people unless you catch someone off guard or they're not really coordinated. But most of the time, you'll see teams just scatter and try to waste your time. I do think there is some utility in playing the Legion, especially if you have like the iridescent button or if you're able to leave them broken. But that's with add-on stuff. I'm talking about just the killer itself. We just need to acknowledge that he's not as strong as what he would be since he got nerfed, but we'll leave the Legion right there above Trapper. I feel comfortable keeping him right there. Uh, the Plague. I'm gonna put the Plague in A tier, but not as good as the Huntress. So the reason I have Plague in A tier is her ability itself is really oppressive, especially if the team doesn't, or sorry, especially if the team does use all the fountains or just like constantly wants to cleanse themselves. That's where she really thrives. When there's multiple blood fountains up, she's really hard to deal with, and she can shut down teams really fast. I played a match as the Plague one time where I ended it in less than a minute because I used the add-on to spawn of the blood fountain, and I was able to down everybody. She can keep everybody sick and injured the entire time, so things like thanatophobia and perks that slow down on injure is also really strong on her. I do feel comfortable keeping her in A tier. I don't think she's better than Huntress just because Plague's skill level really depends on the skill level of the team you're going against. If they don't want to engage with your power at all, then you can't really do anything about it. You become an M1 killer. But for the most part, I find that teams do cleanse, even if it's not frequently. They do want to cleanse at some point. Even if you get the late game, you can still win late game with Plague very easy. Ghostface, I'd put at the top of B tier. The reason Ghostface is at B tier is that without his add-ons, he's just not that strong. I mean, he has add-ons that can make him super strong, but he doesn't really have much going for him. He's one of those characters that's really starting to show his age, and they, need to help him out just a little bit. Especially with how easy it is to break him out of his power, because like sometimes you won't even be looking at somebody and they can break your power. Like they won't even see you; they'll break your power from behind a wall. And I think that's a little goofy. Personally, I think they really need to fix the trigger box for that. Other than that, don't really know what else they can really do for Ghostface outside of reworking how his stalk works. His add-ons are fine; they make him pretty playable, but I'm gonna keep him right there for now. I might move him up a little bit to A tier. I'm not sure yet. Demogorgon. This one's gonna be very controversial, but I'm gonna put him in A tier. That's because the Demogorgon, his power is really strong. Just like map traversal is strong on any character, especially with like the Xenomorph and the Dredge and characters like that who can get across the map really easy. But Demogorgon also has his shred ability, which you can break pallets with it, and if not, you can clear 18 meters with his shred, which is like a huge distance. So it's essentially a long range Victor hit, and I really like that about Demogorgon. He clears a lot of distance. He has map traversal. He's not really that slow of a killer. He's just, in my opinion, he's pretty good. Like, I want to keep him in the back of A tier. I don't think he's as good as the other picks in A tier, but I do think that he's strong enough to not be in the B tier. Oni, I would also put Oni in A. I think he's a little bit better than Demogorgon, and that's because Oni has the potential to keep teams like pressured 24/7, especially with his power. His power's got huge map traversal. He can one shot survivors in his power if he angles it right. There's just a lot of things that are going for the Oni. The only thing that really holds him back is how slow his power charges if you're not running specific add-ons. So that's what kind of holds him back from being a little bit higher for me. You know what? I am going to put him above the Doctor. I do think he's better than the Doctor. Cowboy or Deathslinger. I would say Deathslinger is in A tier, but he's like just slightly behind the Huntress. And the only reason I say that is because of the changes that he has. The Deathslinger is so slow. He's like unbearably slow. His gun reloads slow. His gun isn't even hit scan; it's projectile, which means you have to lead your shot after a certain distance. Um, I think if they buffed his speed just a little bit, he'd be better. But I understand that if they did that, he has the chance of becoming oppressive. So we'll just keep him right here behind Huntress. Pyramid Head. I'm gonna put Pyramid Head at the top of A tier. I could put him in S tier, but there's some things holding him back, like especially with the nerfs to his power. Uh, Pyramid Head can be really oppressive on loops and windows and things like like that survivors generally want to play against. And he does get the ability to insta-mori in his kit if you can get a survivor to step in his barbed wire. But I think most teams that are coordinated can get around his power pretty easy, so they usually won't have an issue with it. So that's the only reason I'm not gonna move him up to S tier, is just that there's a lot of counterplay for Pyramid Head to do bad. Like you can make a Pyramid Head play bad with your pathing. Blight, easy S tier. I'm gonna say Blight's better than the Spirit. Blight has map traversal. He's got really overpowered add-ons. He's extremely fast with his map traversal too, and he can bounce off of objects 5 times, which means he has plenty of time to angle up his shot. There's also some really nutty techs and tricks you can do with the Plague. I think a really good play, or sorry, Blight. I got confused there. I think the Blight's really hard to play against in general, especially if you're playing against a good one, because then it can feel like it's a mountain versus a pebble. So I am going to keep him here. I don't think he's better than Nurse. I do still think Nurse is probably the best killer in the game, and I don't think there's going to be a killer anytime soon that takes that position away from her. Twins, I would say Twins are a sleeper A pick. Twins are really good, and no one plays them. If you have a way to keep survivors injured, Victor becomes Khal Drago, man. Like, Victor is crazy, especially when you happen to have a lot of people injured. The Twins can be really oppressive, and at a higher tier, like higher MMR play, the Twins are crazy. And, like, I wish I saw more of them, but sadly you don't. Like, no one plays these guys, and it's a shame because they're immaculate. The Trickster I'm going to put in B tier. I'm going to put him behind Wraith. Trickster has the same problem that the Huntress has, where he moves really slow. Although his power, you have to hit it multiple times. Well, not even just multiple times, like 7 times, I think, to injure somebody. And then they get the speed boost, and you're already slow, so you have to catch back up to him. The Trickster can be good on certain maps, but I think in general, it's just really hard to get really going as the Trickster. And I think he definitely needs some slight tweaks or maybe some new add-ons or something to help out. Nemesis. I'd put Nemesis in low A. I'd say right here. Yeah. So Nemesis is really good when he plays on pallets and loops and things, because he can shut down really easy. And his zombies can be good if you get good spawns for him. But I find that Nemesis has the same problem as the Deathslinger, in that if a team knows how to play against Nemesis, you can essentially make him not play the game. You can kind of mess with him the entire match and shut him down. Like, higher tier Nemesises have a better chance, but in general, I would say that Nemesis is not super strong right now. I don't think he really needs any tweaks or anything. I just think they need to fix the hitbox on his power, and it could help him go a long way, or maybe help out with how much charge he gets off of hitting somebody. Cenobite, I would put Cenobite in A tier, like right behind Pyramid Head. Actually, you know what? He might be better than Pyramid Head. Chain Hunt is still a really oppressive thing, especially if you can get chains on survivors. Pinhead can essentially slow you down to a point where you can't get away from him. If he happens to hit his chain on you, you're not getting away from him. And his chain has a little bit more control than some of the other ranged killers, so it is easier to hit you with the chains. So I'm going to leave him at the top of A tier. I think before he lost the ability to use Franklin's, I would put him in S tier, because you could just track somebody and constantly have chain hunt. But I say since then it knocked him down just a little bit. Artist, I would put Artist in S tier. I think the Artist is really slept on. I don't think people fully know how to utilize her. She has some of the best loop shutdown in the entire match, and I think that a lot of teams don't know how to play against her because she's such a rare killer to see. But I would leave her in S tier. I don't think she's as good as the Spirit, but I think that she's earned her place up here. Sadako, I put Sadako in A tier. High A tier, especially with condemned builds, map mobility. She can't be stunned in her power. She's just got a lot of things going for her. Dredge, I would put Dredge. I would put Dredge slightly above the twins, but not as good as the Huntress. Dredge has really good map control. His Nightfall ability is really strong. But the thing is, if someone locks a locker, it takes you way too long to catch somebody off guard, and he makes really loud noises when you're teleporting anyway, so it is hard to get the jump on survivors. But if you have something like Third Seal, you can definitely own the map as long as you don't lose your Hex Totem. So we'll leave him there for now. Wesker, S tier. I think he's better than Spirit. So Wesker, he has the Ouroboros to hinder survivors if they get maxed out. So if they're not going out of their way to cleanse themselves, they can get slowed really bad and punished. And then his dash itself has such a huge range, and the hitbox for it isn't like super bad, so you don't really miss a lot of the times. I just think he's a good example of one of the better characters, and that might be why you see him all the time. Everybody plays this character. Knight, I'm gonna put Knight in B tier, but I'm gonna put him like below. Actually, no, I'm gonna put him above Ghostface. So the only reason I have Knight in B tier is just simply because he's super boring. He's really oppressive. He has the same problem that pre-rework Skull Merchant had, where he just wants to camp generators all game and drag the match out. I don't think that's fun for anybody. I think they need to give him some changes, maybe rework him a little bit. But right now, I'm gonna leave him here, just purely based on he's not. All he does is drag out the game. That's really all he can do. This one's going to be controversial. I'd say New Skull Merchant is going to be bottom of the S tier. And that's just because I don't think people have seen her potential yet. She is definitely one of the strongest anti-loop killers in the game after her rework. Especially because you can put two drones back to back and change the directions to where they're getting hit by two beams at once in one loop. There are ways to insta injure survivors. You get the speed boost. You can go fully. You can make survivors oblivious and get like the insidious buff. She's very strong right now. I think when people start to get better as her, they're going to realize it. But right now, I feel comfortable leaving her here. And I know that's going to be the most controversial pick in this video, but I will stand by this choice. And then Xenomorph. I'd put Xenomorph in like mid A tier, maybe above the Plague. Just because the map traversal, you got the range and everything, but sometimes the turrets can get really annoying. But I think this is where I want to leave the list at. I think this looks good to me. There's nothing I really want to move around too much here. I do feel confident in this right here, but like I said, this is just my opinion, so you don't have to take this to gospel. But if there's anything you disagree with or something that you especially agree with, let me know down in the comment section what you would change, or if there's any perks that you think boost these guys up, let me know. I'm definitely always open to hear feedback. But I'll see you in the next one.